Imagine waking up every morning expecting betrayal, expecting criticism, expecting setbacks, expecting disappointment. Most people would call that a miserable way to live. Marcus Aurelius called it freedom. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth. His word could move armies. His decisions affected millions of lives. He possessed more wealth, influence, and authority than almost anyone alive. Yet, despite all that power, he understood something most people never learn. Life does not become easier when you become successful. In many ways, it becomes harder. Every day brought new problems. Political rivals waited for opportunities to undermine him. Entire regions of the empire threatened rebellion. Barbarian tribes pressed against Rome's borders. Disease swept through cities. Trusted advisors made mistakes. Friends died. Family members died. And through it all, Marcus carried the burden of leadership. Most people imagine emperors living in luxury and comfort. The reality was very different. For much of his reign, Marcus spent years away from Rome, living alongside his soldiers on the empire's northern frontier. He slept in military camps. He endured brutal winters. He faced endless conflict and constant uncertainty. The world around him was unstable, yet the man himself remained remarkably steady. How? The answer can be found in a simple habit he practiced almost every morning. A habit that modern psychology has since confirmed to be surprisingly powerful. Marcus Aurelius did not write these words from a marble throne. He wrote many of them in military camps along Rome's northern frontier. Outside his tent, soldiers stood watch in freezing darkness. Beyond them waited enemy tribes, uncertainty, and another day of war. At the same time, a deadly plague was spreading across the empire. It killed farmers, merchants, children, soldiers. Entire communities vanished. Some historians believe millions died during the Antonine Plague. Imagine carrying the weight of an empire while knowing that any message arriving tomorrow could bring news of another disaster, another defeat, another death, another crisis demanding your attention. Most people would have been crushed by the pressure. Marcus prepared for it every morning, before the problems arrived, before the setbacks appeared, before the difficult people crossed his path. He reminded himself of a simple truth. None of these things were unexpected. This was the nature of life. And what is expected rarely has the power to break us. In his private journal, a collection of writings we now know as meditations, Marcus wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." At first glance, it sounds pessimistic, almost cynical. Why would someone begin the day by focusing on everything that could go wrong? Because Marcus understood a truth that most people spend their lives fighting against. Reality does not care about your expectations. The majority of emotional suffering comes not from events themselves, but from the gap between what we expected and what actually happened. We expect people to be reasonable. We expect our plans to work. We expect effort to guarantee results. We expect relationships to remain unchanged. We expect life to cooperate. Then reality arrives. A co-worker takes credit for our work. A friend lets us down. A business fails. A relationship ends. A plan falls apart. And suddenly we feel shocked, frustrated, and angry. Not because hardship appeared, but because we expected it not to. Marcus refused to make that mistake. Every morning, he reminded himself that difficult people existed, that obstacles would appear, that plans would change, that life would challenge him. By doing this, he removed the element of surprise, and that changed everything. Think about a storm. The sailor who leaves port expecting clear skies panics when dark clouds appear. The sailor who prepared for rough seas adjusts the sails and keeps moving. The storm is the same. The difference is preparation. Marcus understood this better than almost anyone who has ever lived. He wasn't training himself to be negative. He was training himself to be realistic. There is a major difference. Negative people assume everything will go wrong. Stoics simply acknowledge that things can go wrong, and when they do, they are ready. Today, psychologists call this practice negative visualization. The idea is simple. Mentally rehearse potential difficulties before they occur. Not to become fearful, not to become anxious, but to become prepared. Athletes do it before competitions. Military units do it before missions. Elite performers do it before stepping onto a stage. They don't wait for pressure to arrive before deciding how they will respond. They decide beforehand. Marcus was doing exactly the same thing nearly 2,000 years ago. Every morning, he rehearsed reality, not fantasy, reality. Imagine two people facing the exact same setback. Both lose their jobs unexpectedly. The first person believed everything was secure. They assumed tomorrow would look exactly like today. The news shatters them. The second person loses the same job. They aren't happy, they aren't unaffected, but they had already accepted that change was possible. That security was never guaranteed, that obstacles were part of life. The same event occurs, yet the reaction is completely different. Why? Preparation. Marcus understood that resilience is built before the challenge arrives. Most people think mental toughness is something you discover in difficult moments. But difficult moments usually reveal the habits you've already built. Pressure exposes, it doesn't create. The athlete who performs under pressure trained before the competition. The leader who remains calm during crisis practiced calm before the crisis. The person who handles disappointment with grace prepared their mind long before disappointment arrived. Marcus knew this. That's why his morning ritual mattered. Every sunrise became a training session. A few moments spent preparing his mind for reality. A few moments spent reminding himself what kind of world he lived in. Not a perfect world, a human world. A world filled with flaws, mistakes, delays, uncertainty, and challenges. The same world we live in today. And perhaps that's why his advice remains so powerful. Technology has changed. Governments have changed. Society has changed. Human nature hasn't. People still disappoint us. Plans still fail. Unexpected problems still appear. We still suffer when reality refuses to match the story we've created in our minds. The lesson Marcus discovered on distant Roman frontiers remains just as relevant now as it was then. Don't expect perfection. Expect reality. Expect delays. Expect mistakes. Expect criticism. Expect uncertainty. Then decide in advance who you will be when those moments arrive. Will you become angry? Will you complain? Will you blame? Or will you respond with patience, discipline, and composure? Because that choice belongs to you. The obstacle itself may be outside your control. Your response never is. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, pause for 60 seconds. Ask yourself, what challenges might I face today? Who might test my patience? What obstacle could appear without warning? Then ask the question Marcus Aurelius asked himself every day. How will I respond? Because the goal is not to avoid hardship. The goal is to meet it prepared. Marcus Aurelius never eliminated uncertainty. He never escaped difficult people. He never removed suffering from his life. What he mastered was his response. That is why his words survived long after the Roman Empire fell. Not because they promised comfort, but because they taught strength. And perhaps the habit that made an emperor unbreakable can do the same for you. Every morning, reality is waiting. Prepare for it. And little by little, day by day, you forge a mind that cannot be easily shaken.